Hello and welcome to week 2 of colour. This week we're going to mix our first colour wheel. You'll have often been presented, or you may have purchased, a colour wheel that looks like this, or you see ones that look like this. But now, having done this chart, that we're realising that we've got lots of different yellows, lots of different reds and lots of different blues, and they don't necessarily correspond to what we see here on a colour wheel that you buy in the shop. That's not to say that these aren't useful, but what becomes more useful is that when we start to mix our own colour wheels and understand how these colours on these charts work. The first colour wheel that I want you to do is that I want you to think about our preconceived idea of what a yellow is, what a red is, and what a blue is. So that for me, when I think of yellow, I think about daffodils and maybe butter, those sort of yellow, sunlight yellow. So looking across our 4 yellows here, think about which one of these yellows fits in with that, I'll say, preconceived idea, or what we're ingrained into us, what we're taught as being a true yellow. And for me, looking across here, I come in here at cadmium yellow light as being that type of yellow. Again, here with the same thing with the red. For me, again, it's that fire engine red, pillar box red, those sort of traditional reds that you maybe see in children's toys or in storybooks. And again, looking across those reds here, I come in here with cadmium red medium as being the red that springs to mind. When we're looking across here at the blues, blue can be a little bit different for some people. We don't necessarily come to mind with exactly the same type of blue. But for me, it's that deep, warm, sea blue that you see on a sunny day, and that's where I'm here now drawn to ultramarine blue for this exercise. So there's our yellow, our red and our blue that we're going to use for that first colour wheel. Now, I will send to you, with the link to this video, this as a Word document. It's a colour wheel, a 12 segment colour wheel that you'll be able to use as a guide and a template to do your colour wheel exercises. You can either keep printing this out just on ordinary paper, and that's fine for these exercises. You don't need to work on anything special. But if you do want to be working either on watercolour paper or the canvas paper for oil or acrylic, what you can do is turn this into a template like that by cutting out every second segment, and you'll end up with a template like that you can trace around these segments onto another piece of paper, and then turn it and then do the final bits of tracing, so that you end up with something that looks like that on your page. So now that we've decided on the yellow, the red and the blue that we're going to use, we want to put those out onto our palette. If we're using oils or acrylics, or if you're using something like watercolour or gouache, onto just an old dinner plate, a white dinner plate is more than adequate to be using as a palette for these exercises. So I'll just put those aside, take that out of the way, and bring my palette in. So there you can see I've got the blue, the red and the yellow laid out, but I'll just leave that in there like that. Now, when we're doing these exercises, we want to try and maintain the paint having a fair bit of body to it. So what I mean by that is that you don't thin it out with either medium or water in the case of gouache and a watercolour. So don't add too much of anything. Try and let the paint just keep bodied, but not diluted. This means the colours will look quite clean, and that you're not letting the white of the paper or anything lighten them, so they're very much just as they come out of the tube. So the first thing we're going to do is paint in our 3 primary colours at full strength in their 3 positions on the colour wheel. So the yellow is going to go in this one here at the top. You will then count 1, 2, 3 spaces and put the red in here. So we might even label these. So this will be yellow. 1, 2, 3 in the 4th position. That will be red. Again, 1, 2, 3, and in that next position will be blue. So they're evenly spaced out around this colour wheel. If you think about it maybe like the face of a clock. So yellow is at number 12, red at number 4 at 4 o'clock, and blue at 8 o'clock. Once you've got your 3 primaries painted in, we're going to deal with each of these segments separately. So this is our orange segment, this will be the green segment, and this will be the violet segment. So I'm just going to write here orange, green, and violet. We're going to do the orange section first. So the first step that you're going to do is get some of your yellow, and either on a separate piece of paper or in this area here below, I'm going to paint down a strip of yellow first. And a strip of red, leaving a gap in between. Then on my palette, I'm going to start to try and mix an orange. Now the orange that I want to mix is this middle one here, the actual true orange, the one that falls directly between the yellow and the red. Now, it's not a matter, and that's what we've learned from that first tint exercise, is that some of your colours are much stronger and in pigment-wise than other colours. So the ones that didn't disappear very quickly when you added the white are very strong pigmentally, and the ones that disappeared quite quickly are the weak ones. So we're probably dealing with 2 colours that are of similar strength. So in this case, we'll just be very careful, but what we're going to do is that the other rule that you can work with is that you always work with the weaker or the lighter colour. So in this case, the yellow is much lighter than the red, so we're going to put down a blob of yellow first and add red to it. It's not about doing a 50% mix to get the middle orange. That isn't our middle orange. What we're after is a 50-50 visual mix. And this is why we've put down these 2 strips of colour. So we're going to get the yellow, we're going to add some red to it. And I've got a cat. Come on, out. No, 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 no. Ooh. So we're mixing our orange. And we're going to just put a little dab of that, like that, between the red and the yellow over here. Now the question we need to ask ourselves is that orange wanting to go and be friends colour-wise? Don't worry about the tone at the moment. It is similar in tone to the red. But does it look visually as though it has a balance between the two, that it fits in between the two? Does it want to go and be friends more with the red, or does it want to visually go and be more friends with the yellow? I think it probably wants to go and be a bit more friends with the red at this moment. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more yellow into my mix. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a blob of it here between the 2 colours, and ask ourselves that question again of is it closer to the yellow or closer to the red? I think probably I've gone maybe a little too far. Now, this is one of those situations in life, I mean, we're normally told that indecision is a bad thing, and it's a little bit like if you've done the Venetian charts with me, the black and white tonal chart, and I talk about that you want the colour or the tone to be fitting in between each time in the middle. And that if you are undecided whether it wants to go and be friends with one way or be friends with the other way, then you've probably got it right. So when I look at this one now, I'm slightly undecided. I am leaning a little bit more to the yellow than I am to the red. So I am going to add just a teensy tiny little bit of red into this mix. Now be making sure that you mix up plenty. Don't try and use a little bit of paint, because you will run out. So I've added just a teensy tiny bit more red. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. It looks fairly balanced and in the middle. Now when you are happy that you've got it, that you're undecided, paint that down into your square or your wedge here. Now, before you give up on that, is that to the left of the yellow strip, put down and paint down a strip of that same orange that you've just put in there, and paint another strip of it here as well. What we're going to do now is work on this segment here. So we've now got our middle orange and our yellow to compare and to work out, and go through that same process of mixing this colour here, which we'll be calling yellow orange, and work through that until again that you get the visual mix of in between. Then again doing the same thing for this one here as well. Once you've done this orange segment, so now we've got our orange, our yellow orange and our red orange, we're going to move on and do the green segment over here. So you're going to do a similar process or the same process as what we've done here. We're going to put a strip of yellow down, and a strip of the blue down. Now the same as when I did the orange just before is that I am going to start by putting yellow down first and adding to it a little bit of blue to make our middle green. Painting that down and asking myself the question, is it leaning towards the blue or leaning towards the yellow? In this case, I think it's still leaning towards the blue a little bit. The yellow, I should say, a little bit. I think I'm happy with that. The last segment we're going to do here is the violet segment. Now we've left that until the last because it is actually one of the harder segments to paint, simply because that when we add reds and blues together to create our violets, that they tend to go quite dark and it's very difficult to see actually the colour that we've mixed here. So that we just need to add in another step for this colour, so that we're able to see those colours more accurately. So like our other stages that we have done, I'm going to paint down a strip of red, and a strip of our blue, taking our lighter colour and adding to it our darker colour. So you can see there straight away what goes on here is that this is going to quite a strange colour, not what you'd think is violet, and how dark it's going to. And I've actually done it around the wrong way. I should have added the red to the blue in this case, because the red is much more stronger than the blue. So I'm actually going to come over here with a lump of blue and add into that back this way, just so that we're not here forever. Now you can see there that's mixed quite a dark colour that I really can't see if it's in the middle. Now what we've got to do to see if it's in the middle is we're just going to put a dab of this colour over here. And just with my finger I'm adding just a little bit of white paint and adding that. Now what that does is it opens up the colour. And I think you can see there that by opening up the colour I can see whether it's a middle violet. And at the moment I would say that that's still leaning too far towards the blue at this stage. So what we're going to do is add a little bit more of this already darkened red. And again, put a little bit of a lump there of it. And I've added too much white. I'll put another lump of it there. Probably don't need to add quite so much white as what I'm adding. And there you can start to see there's a little bit of redness coming out. Probably not enough though. So we'll just come back into this already and add our red that way. Just means we've got a little bit more control. Again, I'll put a little of that down. As I said, I don't need to quite add so much. Now we're starting to get a bit closer. Starting to see a little bit of a red come through. Now what you can do is, we're not going to paint that full strength colour down, but to see if it's sitting in between is to take some of it and paint it down. Now that's not a very good job, so I'm just going to add that. Oh, dear me, I'm looking up today. So there it is with the white added. And I'm just going to put a little mix of it in there like that and judge it opened up, whether it's sitting in between the two. I think I've just gone a little bit too much red, so I'm just going to sneak a little bit of blue back into it. and do the same trick with just a little bit of white. There, it's looking good. Yeah, beautiful. So whilst you've got that colour on the brush, is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a dab of that in a circle just there, and then I'm going to paint it full strength here on the colour wheel. Like that. Now continue in that same fashion. What I would do is to do your judging of the colour. Is put down a strip now of that middle colour opened up here and here, and compare the violet now, the red violet and the blue violet that you'll mix with these colours opened up. So you've got all the colour opened up, but put it here full strength without any white added into it, and of course put a little part of it opened up under there. So there you have it. There is your first colour wheel that you've painted, using our preconceived ideas of what we believe to be a true yellow, a true red, and a true blue. If you wish to do another colour wheel and maybe use another range of colours as practice, I would recommend using these colours here. So we've got a cadmium lemon, or cadmium yellow lemon. That's my permanent matted deep, or alizarin crimson. Oops, put them up here. And cerulean blue. Now, if you don't have those colours specifically, sometimes in some ranges of paint or gouache or things like that, you'll have a colour called cyan, a colour called magenta, and maybe just a colour called yellow. So for instance, there in my gouaches I've got a lemon yellow, permanent rose magenta, and I do have a cerulean blue there as well, but you could maybe have a colour called cyan as well. So you're looking for a yellow that's a slightly little bit lemony. If you don't have any lemon yellow, you could use the same yellow that we've used for this exercise, the cadmium yellow light, or something similar to that. Then, as I said, your alizarin crimson or magenta, and then a cerulean or a cyan blue. And do exactly that same process of what we've done here for this wheel, beginning with the orange, moving to the green, leaving the violet to last, simply because it's harder, and by adding a little bit of white to the violets to see what they look like opened up. I look forward to seeing how you go with these colour wheels, and we'll discuss them more when I meet up with you on Zoom. Take care. Speak to you soon.